We're a desperate team that want to get back to playing finals footy.
Just try and enjoy the journey because it won't be there forever.
We're just trying to build respect and trying to change the perception around Melbourne Football Club.
Yeah, this is just an absolute gift showing us where we need to work on.
Best didn't get us the win, but all we can ask is to bring out the best we can bring.
Thinking, what have I done? How did it happen?
You don't just give kids games because they're high draft picks. It's as simple as that.
Your ticket into the heart of football. Welcome to the Breakfast Club's Inner Sanctum.
Fantastic to head to the Hawks today as well with Tom Mitchell, Hawthorn star and Brownlow medalist, of course. He joins us on this Wednesday morning. Tom, good morning to you.
Yes, good morning. Thanks for having me.
Now, tell us about the weekend. This was a sensational victory. Nice to have an away game at the MCG against GWS too, but the boys turned up, and how impressed were you with some of the youngsters?
Yeah, they were really impressive, weren't they? Will Day was pretty super on the day. A few other guys along the half-back line. CJ, who's been pretty consistent all year, and Jack Scrimshaw was another one that stood up. So that young half-back line is looking pretty promising for the future.
Now, just on the performance as well, was it one that you've been building towards? I mean, you were very good, obviously, a couple of weeks ago against Sydney and demolished them away from home. Really good against Essendon too. Had chances, plenty of chances in that game, and then a really good win over GWS. Do you feel like this is your best patch of form through the year so far?
Oh, you'd think so, yeah. It would have to be. I think, at the bye we were able to reset both mentally and physically and identify a few areas that we wanted to be better at collectively. And, yeah, I think the playing group's really bought into a few of those things, and you can sort of see it in the way the guys are playing. There's a lot more belief there now. And, it's glad, I'm glad that we've got a few results from that.
How was Tim O'Brien's strut on Monday morning walking into the club?
Yeah, it was a decent strut. He got up pretty high, didn't he? So I was actually on the bench when it happened, and our whole interchange was almost cheering like the fans. Like, it was pretty cool mark to see live. And, yeah, I think he'll be strutting around for a bit longer as well.
Well, as he should too, because he was amazing. And I love that photo too of it. Just captured it perfectly. But talk to us about the bye, Tom, because as you mentioned, there's been a bit of a shift. The 10 games leading into the bye, you'd had one win, you've had 2 of 3 post the bye, and, as Maisie said, a really good performance against Essendon. What has it been? What were the real focus points that you identified that you needed to do better and have obviously nailed?
I think it was probably a combination of things, both with our ball use, how we defend, things around the contest. It was probably just, little bits and pieces everywhere. I think, the inside 50 differential, time in forward half, that was some stats that we were probably struggling with. And, we've been able to turn that around the last 3 weeks. And, hopefully that's a consistent theme for the remainder of the season. Yeah,
and Dylan Moore, obviously the 4 goals against the Giants, he's come out of that bye just in ripping form as well, hasn't he? Yeah,
he's been pretty good, Maury. He's, from where he's come from, last year, at the end of last year, he was, questioning whether, he'd have a spot on the list, and now he's a regular senior player. He hasn't missed a game this year, and if you have a player kicking 4 goals and having 20-odd touches, it's a pretty good day out.
We saw the debut of Denver Granger Barras, which is one of the great names. What's his nickname?
He actually gets called Shaggy. So I'm not sure if you've seen Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
But, it's one of Clarko's nicknames that sometimes aren't that funny, but it's nice. So everyone calls him Shaggy. But, it's the guy from Shaggy from Scooby-Doo. Apparently they look the same, so he gets Shaggy.
It's a bit easier than getting through the whole 3 rounds of it.
Yes.
Now, Sean Burgoyne, there's lots going to be said. You've played with him for a few years. I mean, can you tell us a story or something about him that people might not know? Has he got a bad habit anywhere or anything like that?
Let me think. Put me on the spot a little bit. He hates meetings, probably because he's been doing it for 20 years and he knows the game better than anyone, so he doesn't like meetings. He hates like a change in routine. So obviously we're not doing it at the moment with COVID, but in the past when we would go do a session off site, like he doesn't like that. He just likes going to Waverley every day doing his same routine. So there's a few little things, but yeah, we're pumped to play with him. Like, he's been such a good player, but an even better person. Like, he's such a great role model for all our players. Very humble. Treats everyone with respect, and hopefully we can get a win for him.
Does he get a free hit? Does Clarko let him? Oh, he doesn't have to come to this meeting, or Shawnee's not here. He's just having that one off.
No, he's supposed to come, unfortunately for him. But he's the first one to wrap it up. If he thinks it's going a bit long, he's like, "All right, boys," and he'll just walk out. Follow him. So.
Oh, I love that. Tom, on the other end of things, you mentioned it a little bit across that half-back line, the youth and the debutants you've had. You've had the most in the league so far in 2021, 8. What does that do to the makeup of the team and how you approach, how you play? Obviously, when you've got players like Sean in the team and for many years you'd had a really experienced team that was coming through, how does that shift how you approach how you play?
Yeah, well, I think any young player just starting out their career, it's obviously quite a challenge. So I think as senior players, you want to try and lead the way and set the example as best you can, and hopefully the younger guys follow. Which I'm glad that we've had a few debutants in this little 3-week patch, although we've only won 2 of the games. But guys like Jai, Newcomb, and Lockie Bramble, their first taste of AFL footy has been at a high standard, so they sort of know what to expect for hopefully the remainder of their career.
You mentioned John Newcomb. I mean, from the outside, that's pretty incredible. You just get picked up, Tom, and a week later in the AFL, you're tackling like as if you've been there for 5 years. What?
Yeah.
Did you know? I mean, you knew more about him than the normal punter, but it's a pretty impressive effort.
Yeah, it's very impressive. I didn't even, I'd barely trained with him, let alone even seen him play. But when we played our first game together, so that came up in Sydney. I reckon I trained with him just a handful of times, and he was straight in the team. So it was a bizarre way to make your debut, pretty much coming from the clouds, playing 5 or 6 games at Box Hill and straight into the AFL. So it's a pretty good story.
So on that team selection as well, obviously it was celebrated with him a couple of weeks ago making his debut. With Sean Burgoyne last week, I'm interested in his naming as the Medi sub. Obviously, he clocks up a game, which is good, so he can play his 400th this week. But when does that get announced for you guys? Is that when you announce the entire team, or is that something that you decide on a little bit closer to the match? When does that announcement actually take place?
I think the coaches normally have a pretty good indication sort of around Thursday afternoon. Generally, I think the teams are released Thursday night, so they normally try to get around to the players prior to that, just so that there's no surprises before the teams get to the media. So, Sean's been the medical sub a couple of times this year. I think, just with his age and things like that, and he's obviously a really good burst player. So on the weekend, he came on the last quarter and had a really damaging quarter for us. But I don't think he'll be the sub in his 400th. I think he'll be having a good run around this week.
Exactly. On Sean Burgoyne as well, and just one more on the influence that he's had at the club. You mentioned him being on the bench there. Do you think he's ready to step into that coaching role as well? Because that's one other thing we hear from a lot of players who've played with him over the last 20 years is that his knowledge of the game and the way that he can instill that into younger players is a massive advantage for him. Was he able to work on that almost as the Medi sub a few times coaching from the bench?
Yeah, definitely. He's definitely got the capability to be a great coach. He could be anything you wanted, really, Sean. He's just so committed and dedicated to whatever he puts his mind to. And yeah, the example you just used, whenever you do come to the bench, he's, educating guys, teaching them, giving feedback, and the way he delivers it is just in a really caring way, and he's got the best interest of the team and all the players. So yeah, I have no doubt he could be a coach if he wanted to. He's pretty much like an extra coach at the moment anyway. We're probably all clubs are probably all a little bit under-resourced with coaching due to the cuts and things like that. But, that's when senior guys like Sean step in and help us out with the coaching too.
So it's a great little story that Port Adelaide are going to be the opponents on Saturday. How much has been spoken about Sean and his 400th? Will you do a video internally? Is there a reflection from past players that come in to talk about Sean, or is it just sort of business as usual until closer to the game? What's going to happen this week internally?
Yeah, well, today's a day off for the players, so I have no doubt the club will have some things planned in the coming days. Albeit we wouldn't, Sean, doesn't like making things about himself and wouldn't want it to be a distraction from the game. But, it's a pretty special milestone, 400 games. So, I'm sure there'll be a few words said from some people close to him. There'll be a video put together. There'll be some sort of celebration at some point. We don't have the exact details of that yet.
Maybe Clarko might be penning another song as well.
The guitar will come out.
Exactly.
You'd hope
Definitely.
so.
Surely it must. Now, one of the other coaches, Sam Mitchell's getting a lot of publicity, obviously highly rated. From a player's perspective, what's his style?
Yeah, Mitch is a great coach. I was really lucky to work with him, in the midfield, the last few years. Obviously he's at Box Hill this year, but he's just such a well-rounded coach and leader. He's very smart, very dedicated. Like, he'll go above and beyond. Very innovative with his footy stuff, but also, the relationships he's managed to build with players. Like, I know when I broke my leg, he was the one there with me through the whole ride. From the ambulance from Waverley to the hospital to the very end. Like, he helped get me through that. So he's got a pretty good balance of obviously how smart he is with his footy, but then also the care and relationship. So he's going to be a great senior coach one day.
And what about Clarko? What influence do you think he has on someone like Sam and the way he coaches? Because we've obviously seen so many coaches that have sat underneath him go on to really big roles. How do you see that play out and the influence that he does have on those coaches that sit underneath him?
I think it's probably only natural. With Mitch obviously playing under Clarko for his whole career, there's certain things that have worked for them and they're going to continue to do in their coaching careers because it's proven. So, I think there'll be similar traits that'll be shown up in certain aspects of the game and just the way they deliver things with their coaching. So I think that's only natural.
Tom, all the best on Saturday. It's going to be a huge build-up. We can't wait to celebrate it with everyone. And good luck against the Power. Hopefully bring home the 4 points.
Thank you, guys.